fly is called an RC fly, and it's called an RC fly because the dubbing has rock chuck fur in it, and it's a Bill Sheese pattern. Bill Sheese is the guru of Henry's Lake, if you don't know who he is, but he's a great Stillwater fly fisherman, and a lot of the flies that I fish with are his patterns or stuff that I have modified from him. So I tie this typically on a size 10 2X long hook. This is just a 9671. Sometimes I tie it on a Gamakatsu S10, but I fish this fly mostly when it's kind of damsel season. It's not a real damsel pattern imitation, but it works really well during damsel season. But it also, will work pretty well all year long. And I should be using olive thread on it. I'm going to use brown because I'm using brown on another fly. And just to save time changing threads, I'm going to stick with the one and make it do a couple of different jobs. But it's close enough. I like to dress my hook and put a little glue over all the thread when you dress the hook on to start with. Another thing I like to do is use woolly bugger marabou. It's not the long fibers, but typically I don't want a long tail on these flies, so I'll usually try and get 3 different flies out of one piece of woolly bugger marabou. I just strip some of the feather down off the side, bunch it up into a bundle, and trim off the junky end, and lay it down across the body of the fly and tie it in. I don't like the tail too long because it gets way too long to look like a damselfly nymph if you string it out there, so I shorten up the tail pretty much. And I also, just for a little color and glitter, I put 3 strands of root beer crystal flash into the tail. I try to lay them in there so that they basically get a strand on each side and one on the top or bottom. After I get them tied in, I like to take the strands back towards the back and tie them over the top so it locks them good and tight so they don't pull out. And for this fly, I like to use a dubbing loop, and I learned a little trick. If you haven't seen it, it's a great one. This is just a piece of plastic. Actually, I think it's a part of the carton that lettuce comes in that my wife gets. So a friend of mine showed me this trick. You take the glue out of a glue mouse trap and put a little gob of it on a piece of plastic about the middle of the strip, then fold it over and put a staple through it and offset the edges so that you can slide it down your line, and it makes the stickiest, nicest dubbing cement I've ever used, and you don't get anything on you or anything, but it makes for a great dubbing loop. And then I'll build a little dubbing loop and take my rock chuck fly dubbing, and if anybody's interested, I do have a recipe that you can make your own out of this. So I have some cards up here if you want to email me for any information. I'd be happy to send you anything I can. I don't overly dub this to. Another neat little tying trick, if you're not familiar with them, are these floss pullers that you can buy a package of 25 for about $3 at the Walmart or any place like that, but they make a great thread puller, and they don't damage ceramic bobbins like the metal ones do. these bobbins that are using, if you haven't seen them, they're spring retractable. But when you cut your thread, it sucks it all the way in, so you have to live with that. And I adjust that a little bit so that it's thinner towards the back and thicker at the front. And just pull that back and build a little bit of a head. Not much. Then after I've got to this point, I also take 3 more strands and make of the root beer crystal flash and just make it like a little wing over the top of the body. It just brightens up the fly. I do some with and some without. Some days the fish seem to want things a little more subtle, but more times than not it works better with the flash wing than it does without. And then too, after I've got it started, I lock in my fibers so they don't pull out easily. Just build a little head on it and whip finish, and that's all there is to the fly. It's very simple, but it's one of my most successful overall Stillwater patterns. I use it often and a lot, but I also tie the exact same pattern in a rust colored and use a little copper crystal flash in it instead of all root beer, and I tie it in a blonde one. A lot of times I'm finding, especially more lately, that a lot of the damselflies out there are a lot lighter colored. So if you see damsel nymphs that are lighter, I tie this exact same pattern in a light pattern. I'm not going to show one, but it's out of my reach there. Anyway, that is the Bill Schultz's RC fly. Real simple pattern, and the simple is my favorite.